What's up guys, Amanda here, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about the Terry Crews situation, which is back in the news now because he obviously just had his Senate hearing. And the Senate hearing was specifically about the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights, which actually is looking for a lot of things that I didn't even know people needed to fight for, like government-subsidized rape kits, meaning that they don't have to pay for their own criminal investigation for rape kits, which I didn't know was a thing, but then also other stuff like they'll hold on to every rape kit until like the statute of limitation is reached so that people don't feel like they have to immediately go forward with their accusations, because obviously you can be dealing with a lot of trauma at the time. So just a bunch of different stuff like that. But just the fact like the government, just the doing the rape kit being government subsidized, I thought that was just a thing, but apparently it's not. So obviously he was back in the news because a few months back he had come forward with the Me Too movement, explaining that he had himself been groped by a Hollywood agent involved in his own agency, specifically the head of motion picture development, Adam Bennett. And apparently what happened from that, even though he went forward, he didn't fight back. He tried to go through the legal channels. He let the agency know, and they promised they were going to do something, but all they did was demote him. They didn't actually take any action towards him. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And the reason why it's back in the news on top of the Senate hearing is that he is not going to be in Expendables 4 because Avi Lerner, who is involved at the studio that helps produce Expendables 4, has said that basically if he didn't drop his lawsuits and didn't drop his claims against Adam Bennett, he was going to be removed from the project. So he said, you know what, I'm going to turn down this guaranteed big old paycheck, lots of money in those movies, I imagine, and I'm gonna keep fighting for what I believe in because it's important. So if you were looking for really specific information on like what was said, how he was threatened with his career, basically, what his personal account was on the situation, but the long and short of it was that this guy was grabbing his genitals at a party right in front of his wife, basically, and he said that it 100% felt like a power play. It was a situation where he was trying to just assert his power over anybody he could, and Terry Crews happened to be one of those people. So like I said, I'm sure there's a lot of people who've dealt with all that in extreme detail. There's a lot of news articles out there, but the main reason why I want to talk about it is the larger implications of the situation. And there are a few, so let's try to like unpack them. This is kind of like, it's more of an opinion piece. It's not like a definitive thing. I don't consider myself a master in any of this kind of stuff, but it is very important. So the one thing is that oftentimes the view of sexual assault is weakness, and there's always the constant comments from judges, which still happens to this day, that the people who are being assaulted should have done something to prevent it. And largely it is women. It's, you should have been dressed differently, you should have fought harder, you should have kept your knees closed, maybe you thought it was flattering. That was one actually from Canada, was judge says sexual assault victim might have been flattered when the 17-year-old was raped by the 49-year-old taxi driver because she was a little bit overweight but had a pretty face, so maybe she was flattered. So like the fact that this stuff still happens in courtrooms shows why it is a very important topic. So when you have the argument constantly devolving into what the victim should have done differently to prevent it from happening, which largely comes back to fighting off the attacker, being just different overall, and then you have someone like Terry Crews, who is massive, he is strong, he is a man, and he froze up. He specifically mentions that he froze up, and he didn't fight back because he said, somebody even asked him, like, why wouldn't you fight back? And it's like, you know, black men, especially where I'm from, have very few chances at making it, have very few chances in life, and that could have been the moment where if I had done something, that would have been me getting locked up. That would have been me being the bad guy. So I had to have the patience, and obviously I didn't know what to do. I wasn't expecting it. I always saw myself as the strong person. That's what happens with a lot of men. And he specifically goes into talking about how that's toxic behavior, toxic masculinity, and how that is one of the really dangerous things about the entire culture in general, is this idea that men need to be stronger and therefore are less likely to come forward when they're attacked, which is terrible, less likely to come forward when they're assaulted, and more likely to feel shame, extreme shame, because they feel like their peers will judge them. And as we're seeing as a result of this, we've had 50 Cent and Russell Simmons coming forward trying to make fun of Terry Crews, which I think is absolutely disgusting, because I think what Terry Crews is doing right now is extremely brave. I think what he's going through is both going to be beneficial for both sides. It's going to be beneficial for females that are dealing with sexual assault and females in the industry dealing with sexual assault and men trying to come forward. And he said a lot of men have gone to him saying, Same thing happened to me, and I didn't come forward because I didn't think anyone would believe me. And in Terry's own accounts, he's saying that people tried to tell him it was just joking around, it was just horseplay. But you can't tell me that grabbing someone's junk is horseplay. It's not. It's assault. Even if you mean it as a joke, it's not a joke. You know not to do it. It's like pretty much one of the first things your parents should teach you is that your body is your body. We had a song. It was like, my body's nobody's, body but mine. You have your own body. Let me have mine. That is ingrained in my brain forever. And it shouldn't be hard to understand, but it is really easy to see how it's a power play. It's to assert dominance over a situation. And he specifically said that if I can be a vulnerable victim, if I can be somebody who is attacked, who is targeted, he says he would hate to be or even understand what it would be like to be a younger female actress trying to make it. And then literally also went home and drove the point of people continuing to turn their eyes and trying to protect men like that who use their power for wrong are the reasons why men, women, and children will continue to be assaulted in Hollywood. And obviously in a lot of other places, but specifically in Hollywood. There's obviously always been a lot of talk about the stuff that's happened to child actors. Alex Winters has come forward with it a lot. He's the guy from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He was also in Lost Boys. In one of the interviews, he was specifically asked, like, hey, why do you spend so much time hanging out with, like, the younger kids and stuff? And he's like, sometimes people's parents aren't around, and I just want to look out for them. And it was, like, years later, he was like, yeah, like, stuff happened to me, and I wanted to make sure it never happened to anybody else. But it is so hard to come forward about it because nobody believes them. So the fact that Terry Crews is coming forward is extremely important on multiple levels. So like I said, why I figured that this specific situation is so important and why it's so important that he is coming forward is because he is the complete polar opposite of what anybody would call a victim. He's tall, he's strong. People have literally just pointed out that he probably has more muscle in a forearm than the average person has on their entire body. That he's like the last person you would expect to be a victim. But he was. So I think it's very, very important for people and how they choose to try to treat victims and how they try to rationalize and flip situations on victims. I think it's really important to have that as the backbone to just shut down judges, to just shut down people in general, because that's always what the argument dissolves into. And then it's also extremely important with the discussion of how men feel uncomfortable coming forward when they're assaulted, how they feel ashamed, how they feel like no one's going to listen to them, how they feel it makes them lesser of a man. They don't feel comfortable coming forward. So Terry Crews coming forward and talking about it is the first step in opening that floodgate. It's the first step in letting other men know that it's okay to have a moment of weakness like that. It is okay to have been put in that situation, and telling people about it doesn't make you lesser of a man, regardless of what little bitch boys like 50 Cent and Russell Simmons might say. That's always something I've really been interested about. Like, for those of you who don't know, one of my degrees is in criminology, and one of the things I specifically looked into was like male levels of assault and why it goes underreported and why people feel like they can't come forward with it. And it's because it's a societal stereotype. It's a societal built thing that men feel like they can't because they're not supposed to be victims, and that's a dangerous thought. So it is really amazing that Terry Crews is fighting tooth and nail, and that he's choosing not to be a part of a movie, and he's choosing not to back down in a situation that is literally, it's causing him more harm in the long run than any of his attackers. But he knows it's important, and he's doing it, and I think that's amazing, and he should be commended. So I guess if you have like a Twitter account or something, go find his Twitter and just be like, you're the shit, man. You're awesome. Good shit. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that. I could have gone into way more detail and just talked about specifics and like a lot of statistics and stuff, but I just wanted to give my light opinions on the situation, why I think it's important, why I think it's terrible that this is the trend of Hollywood, and why I'm really glad that the Me Too movement brought out people from all different walks of life. And hopefully the trend continues. And I don't mean in a malicious hunt takedown way. I mean in a genuine way where there's genuine discussions happening, and it's just pushing dialogue forward and helps make it so that this kind of stuff is less likely to happen in the future. Because unfortunately, situations like this where people feel like that career, the career of acting, the career of being a Hollywood star is a privilege, they're a hell of a lot more likely to put up with things that no one should have to, because they feel like they need to. They feel like it's an inevitability and they have to put up with it to earn what they have, and that's not okay. And Terry Crews coming forward is a really good step in the right direction. So thank you all so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. and we'll catch you all later.